All right, we are here, and this is live on YouTube through StreamYard. And I am just bringing up this topic in reference to the coronavirus because it seems like a good number of people have acted the way of um, panic, so to speak, in not necessarily acting a accordingly when it comes to this thing in reference to the coronavirus. Um, so we know, I guess, the supposed backstory of the coronavirus or whatever it is, but I am trying to focus a little bit on um, news, kind of talking about specific people that are diagnosed with the coronavirus, and I'm asking people to think for a moment. Um, when we receive these reports of people that have contracted the coronavirus, I want people to ask themselves, how in the world were they able to contract it in the first place? Whether you receive information about where it originated or anything like that, whatnot. But when you get news of well known people that are reported to have the coronavirus, whether it's Trudeau's wife over in Canada, whether it's Donovan Mitchell and Rudy Gobert, whether it's Charles Barkley, whether it's um, Idris Elba, or recently Kevin Durant. Um, you have to scratch your head and think about how in the world were they able to contract this disease. Um, and you got to be able to figure out, okay, why is it that these other people are contracting this coronavirus? Um, it's basically something to have people think about um, this being supposedly dangerous, or this trying to incite a reaction within the general public to have them react in the way that they are reacting. Um, that you have these, people specifically in America, um, buying up certain items from the stores, whether it's, toilet paper, paper towels, um, hand sanitizer, um, disinfectant, that type of thing. Um, it's to kind of see what the reaction of the general public is. Now, however you feel about the coronavirus or not, um, the reaction to this and what is being put in place um, pretty much will have the general public acting a certain way. Now, I've said on Facebook, I've done a video um, at a grocery store, and I showed how you are supposed to prepare in a time of crisis. And initially, that's not been a good move when you have things that are goods or foods that last a long time, aren't really touched as much. but those that are disposable fairly quickly, such as meats, dairy, and the like, are all scooped up. That's not necessarily how you go about preparing for something like this. It's like preparing for a hurricane or preparing for a major storm. You get things that would last for a long time. Whether it's canned goods, rice, beans, um, juices, water, um, flashlights, batteries, just in case power goes out. Those are the things that you'll pretty much have to get first, because those last a long time or last as long as they do. And also, with it being the modern day era, you have to invest in portable chargers, or if you have the money, a generator, so that if power does go out and there's a method of communication that you have through your cell phones, you'll be able to charge up your cell phone and have that type of communication as long as you possibly can. So, when it comes to this whole thing about curfews and lockdowns and all of that, you got to be able to prepare yourself in order to communicate with your loved ones, your friends and family are there, because if you don't have no power, you can't, communicate through the internet. So that's out of the window. Um, but here, in reference to this whole thing with the coronavirus thing, um, if you kind of like check the list of people that have been reported to have coronavirus, you gotta sit back and think a little bit when it comes to the likes of a Tom Hanks, like I said, Rita Wilson, uh, Donovan Mitchell, Rudy Gobert, Sophie Gregor Trudeau, um, Philip Jansen, uh, Mikel Arteta from Arsenal over in the UK, or Callum Odell or Callum Odoi from Chelsea. Um, Other names that are out there, Tony Mazuko is another one that's within the list. Um, there's multiple people that's out there um, that have been reported to have contracted the coronavirus. And like I said, recently with likes of a Charles Barkley and Kevin Durant, that's among the list. So you will see more people or more high ranking officials or celebrities or the like that will be reported to contract coronavirus. It's going to happen. You're going to you're going to get that news. How you react to that news is basically what they're looking for. Okay? All I want you to do is basically think about what's happening in reference to those reports, um, and how you see these celebrities say that they kind of like contract um, this virus. So when you see the thing with Tom Hanks and how that was um, reported, how you see that Idris Elba, he had the video posted saying that he basically got tested. So think about that. All these high-ranking officials, all of these celebrities, athletes, and whatever it is, um, see that they have contracted coronavirus. But you got to see like what happens there. So let me see if I could get this person on. So let's see what's going on with this here. If it's the person that I'm looking to speak to and invite, so what's going on?
Hello, how you doing? Good.
Yeah, doing good, man. So, talking about this whole thing with the coronavirus, man. See that you have questions on it.
I do have questions on it.
Uh,
I think
oh boy. Hopefully he's still on there, man. Because I know you're sure at a very distant location, so I wanted you to definitely be on here. Um, I was hoping that this thing was working completely. But yeah, right now I'm not necessarily hearing you. At this particular juncture. Um, so hopefully, hopefully you're still able to hear me or whatnot. But I wanted to see if you're able to speak on here. Um, wanted to see if I could get something on or kind of like share this here. While he kind of he kind of like was disconnected. Hopefully, he can get back on with a better connection, so that you'll be able to see what's going on with that. So yeah, he's kind of back at it. So let's see if we could add him back on here. Hold on a minute.
I'm here.
So
I'm
got
here.
you back on here.
Did
All
you
right,
hear the
cool, cool,
question
cool.
or did it cut out?
All right, so what you were talking about?
Did you hear the question or did it cut out?
No, it cut out.
Okay. So the question, I'll just make it quick and short and sweet for you. Um, a few people are saying that there are benefits. There genuinely are benefits of COVID-19. Um, we've discussed those, and I'm sure we'll go into them a little bit later. But one thing that I wanted to ask you specifically is what benefit, how would Trump benefit from COVID-19? Trump himself or his administration, however which way you want to look at it.
It's not something for Trump to benefit from. It's something against him. You see, because it's I've said it's an internal war um, that's going on, a civil war, and when you have something like this where it's supposedly an epidemic when there isn't really that many cases of COVID-19 in comparison to influenza, that kills many more people per year or per month or whatever it is. But when you're able to have people react the way that they react in reference to a specific disease, whether it is an actual disease or not, that is basically the plot to try to remove Trump from office. When it comes to the overall history of what has happened ever since he took the office of the presidency of the United States. So when you talk about COVID-19 or coronavirus, and you see these people, specific people, notable people that say they have the coronavirus, when there hasn't necessarily been a way for them to contract it. Like everybody as a whole does not know how the coronavirus gets contracted or spread, but yet all of a sudden it's all supposedly all over the United States. So when you have, like, say for example, you have these famous celebrities that claim that they have it, right? Like a Charles Barkley or a Kevin Durant or something like that. You have to ask yourself, how in the world were they able to contract it, especially when they say recently, when there hasn't been anything that has been going on within America in general when it comes to, say, sporting events. Like sporting events have basically been completely suspended, but yet these players contracted the coronavirus. It seems like he has disconnected once again, but he should be back on here. So you're back here with us, man, and so that's why I like have this thing shared on the screen where ESPN reported earlier today that 4 players for the Brooklyn Nets have tested positive for coronavirus. The team announced Tuesday. Of the 4 players, one is exhibiting symptoms, or 4 are isolated and are undergoing medical care from team physicians, the team said in a statement. So the thing that you have to ask yourself is how in the world are they able to test for coronavirus? How are they able to get the materials needed in order to test for it? That's number one. Number two, the team physicians that are there, how is it that they are able to conduct those tests? You see, that's the other thing. So when I first received this news about 4 players for the Brooklyn Nets testing positive for coronavirus, I immediately thought back to when they said something about Rudy Gobert from the Utah Jazz, and then later on down the line, Donovan Mitchell. And I said, look, watch how you can basically narrow down, even though it's a limited roster, of course, that you could narrow down the players that would be said to have coronavirus. And I made a guess
Okay,
of
okay,
two
okay, 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 okay.
two
Right. Okay.
players,
So,
and then I added one more. And when I added that last one, that was the one that was said to have coronavirus, and that is Kevin Durant. Now, Kevin Durant is one of the most high or one of the highest profile players in the NBA. So when you have somebody of that stature that says that they have coronavirus, that would incite a shock reaction from the general public that they will say, oh my goodness, he has the coronavirus. It's almost like back in the day in the 90s when the world got the news of Irvin Magic Johnson saying that he contracted HIV.
mm,
That's basically how this is. Like Magic Johnson was the biggest, well, he was one of the biggest stars at that particular time,
invincible.
basically invincible then. But then he said that he had the HIV virus and that he was, quote unquote, forced to retire from the sport of basketball at that time, after, 1991 or so. But here we have something in a coronavirus where they say that, okay, first you have Rudy Gobert that contracted it, and Donovan Mitchell that contracted it, and Charles Barkley that contracted it, and now it's Kevin Durant that contracted it. That should be a problem because you would have to ask yourself how, number one, how would they be able to get the coronavirus, number one, and two, how are they tested in order for them to say that they have coronavirus? You see what I mean? So that's why I say, well, is this thing real or not? I
Right.
say
Okay. So maybe
partially
right. Okay. Okay.
no.
Okay. So let's speed it up. Right.
Oh,
So well, so not speed it up, but let's get cut to the chase. So what I'm asking you is let's look at Trump specifically and
okay.
Corona. Okay.
Okay.
Do you feel that because we touched on something before in previous conversations where you felt that um, this is a tool or an aid or could be a tool or an aid um, to help Trump go against the national banks. Let's just say the national banks. Let's not use names. Um, so how would someone like Trump use something like this against somebody that um, is funding him and our countries to get out of it? I don't understand that. So I'd love to hear your logic on how Trump would go against the national banks, and where does
You,
COVID-19 come into?
okay. That kind of makes things a little bit complicated, so that people who are watching this or listening to this might not be able to quite piece together. But you're talking about the whole thing with national banks and whatever it is.
We are.
Now, I'm going to try to compress this as much as I can.
Greg?
The dollar has a set value that is placed on it, and that value fluctuates over the course of time. Okay. The dollar has never had a set value in years, many years. Okay.
Nor does any currency.
Nor does any currency. Why? Because it's not backed by anything. It used to be backed by something, but it's not backed by anything. I'm talking about the dollar, the US dollar specifically. It's not backed by anything. That's why it's called a Federal Reserve
Here,
note.
I'm just going to jump in and say, you can say it's not backed by anything, but it's owned by the Bank of America. It's owned by the Bank of America.
It's on it. Whatever you may say that it's owned by or whatever it is, that's one thing. But what I'm telling you is that right now, the dollar is being changed over, or trying to be changed over to what it was. It was not always a quote unquote Federal Reserve note. It has not always been that way. It was changed to becoming a Federal Reserve note. You see? But now they're working towards it being back to what it was, which means that it actually is quote unquote insured by gold. That's what the dollar used to be backed under.
Listen,
but then
listen, money
eventually went away. Okay.
JR. Money comes from. Listen, JR. Money comes from. If you go way back, right? There was gold in the bank, and they used to give you a slip, and that slip was represented your gold in the bank. So you didn't have to carry your gold around with you. It just said, I have this much money in the bank, this much gold, and then that was your slip. That's what a note is. It's always been that, and it's developed. There's no different. That note, if you read what your note says, it says it's owned by the Bank of America, the Bank of England, whatever. That's the bearer. So it's not that's just the way it is. So I don't understand what's changing back.
You're not getting it. You're not understanding it. None of us hold gold. Who holds gold? Do you hold gold?
No, truthfully, that's the whole point.
Okay.
No,
we don't. But
we never have done.
You're not understanding it, because you're kind of blocking a period in history, or just erasing a period in history that has actually happened.
Let me do it like this. Let me ask you a question. Okay?
Why is it
from the moment,
you're resisting it?
Let me ask you a question.
Why are you resisting this?
Let me ask you a question.
That you're resisting this. Okay.
From the moment that they held your money, it used to be Smiths. It used to be Goldsmiths, whatever you want to call them. They used to hold your money. Obviously, they're called banks now, but back then they were goldsmiths, right? From the moment that they started issuing notes to represent the amount of money that goldsmith held, this is going way, way back. Okay. What has changed from the minute that first note was issued? Okay, obviously there's loads of different things. Listen, there was printing more than, forget all of that. But what I'm asking you is, what do you think? There's no going back. We've evolved from that. It's just an evolution. But what do you think we're going back to?
You're again.
We're going to start holding gold now? We're going to start holding gold.
What you're forgetting is that within the time period from 1930s to the 1940s, they held gold up to that particular point. But then there was a transition.
Bro, you're jumping. This goes back to the way back.
Are you going to hold on? Stop. Either you're going to listen or you're not. No in between. I've told you this before. Either you're going to listen or you're not going to listen.
Fire
When
away, Graham.
I put in that time period is because I can't tell you the exact date and the exact year right now when they said that they're basically collecting all of the gold from the people at that particular time. That happened. When you talk about this whole thing with gold, people held gold at that particular time. Gold and the dollar at that particular time. But there was one instance where the government pushed the people to turn in all of their gold. And once they did all of that, everything changed from having a gold backed dollar to just a quote unquote promissory note dollar.
Right.
So
Okay.
all of the dollars did lose their value at that particular time. So, for example, you would have something that is a 1-to-1. So, if you had a like say a block of gold, right? And that block of gold is worth one paper dollar. You knew
Yeah.
that everything was basically even off of that. But
Yeah.
when they changed everything up and they told everyone to turn in their gold, then the dollar changed from being 1-to-1 to being one to whatever they set the value of that dollar to be. So it could be 1-to-1, it could be 2-to-1, it could be 1/2 to 1. So that's why now today the dollar fluctuates in value. You see? So it's like, okay, I could go to some place in America and at one period of time I could buy, like say in the 1980s, right? I could buy
Mhm.
a piece of candy, a Snickers for like say 15 cents. But now I have to buy that same piece of candy for $1, right? So I
Right.
can't necessarily use that same dollar to buy up to 5 pieces of that candy anymore. It's only good enough to buy one piece of candy.
Okay.
So that's where the whole thing is when it comes to interest rates and the
Yeah, but
dollar
listen.
value
Those interest rates.
fluctuating.
This is what.
Oh man, he got off. He got cut off again. But hopefully he's able to get right back on here. But I'm basically just giving the whole concept. It's almost like how trade was working back in the day. You would have an apple, you would have someone else with an orange. If if that person with an orange wanted an apple, it would just trade the apple to the orange, as they would basically have equal value. But if there's something that is said to have more value than something else, then you would have to get more of the item that you held in order to get one of what they got. So that's basically trade. And that's pretty much has happened since the beginning of whatever. 1 for 1, trade this for that, trade a cow for a chicken, trade a pig for a horse or whatever it is. But if there is something where, like say for example, a cow um has more value because you could get more out of the cow than you could get from say a pig or a horse or something like that. Then if the person with the horse wants the cow, they got to bring something more than that horse in order to get the cow. So that's basically what I'm trying to put up here when it comes to the dollar, in that it used to be a gold back dollar. That's that is what it is. Used to be backed by gold, and then it wasn't backed by gold anymore, and it hasn't been backed by gold since. Jeez, man, what has it been? Almost 90 years. 90 years almost. And so now we're trying to flip things over, have a reset, have the dollar backed by gold or whatever it is, because right now, how are you able to think about it? But this whole thing about debt, and I think that is what the person that was gonna that has been on was gonna try to say, is that this whole thing about debt and like how it's how it's created or how it's present or quote unquote omnipresent. Well, we're trying to erase all of that, because if you think about it, you could go and YouTube and look up all the stuff about money is debt in all of those videos or whatever it is. It'll show you the history about the current dollar being used as debt, or how banks work when it comes to loans, because you can't necessarily get a loan and it basically being one for one. Never had that. It's like a credit card. You don't have a credit card that's a one for one, a 0% interest rate. What sense of anything to have something that's 0% interest rate, you know? So that's the thing when it comes to the thing about the dollar. But going back to the whole thing in reference to coronavirus, let me see something here. It looks like someone was trying to uh, send me something in reference to a scare tactic or something, so to speak. Um, the thing about this is, it's like you talk about COVID-19 or whatever it is. That's it's something to that's something I'm going to look into later. You know, but like I said, in reference to this whole thing about coronavirus, COVID-19, just do your research, and then when you're done, do your research once again. Um, like I said, there's a virus that is being out there. It doesn't necessarily have to be COVID-19. It could basically be a version of the flu, no different than bird flu, swine flu, West Nile virus, anything like that that has happened over the course of my lifetime. But now this is something where it has been sensationalized to the level that it's made people react the way that they have reacted. So while people are being quote unquote quarantined, and you have all of these rules and regulations that are being set out of nowhere. Think about that, out of nowhere. In reference to this, um, when we haven't had this type of reaction, like for the West Nile virus, for the bird flu, for the swine flu, for influenza that affects many more people yearly than this COVID-19 has. Um, so, on one sense, be safe, but also in another sense, do research. Okay. Especially now, since it is allergy season up in the northern hemisphere. We're going into the spring solstice. So when it comes to that, be aware of what's going on. Um, make sure that you have things. Make sure you know what the difference is, because that is very key. That you know what the difference is when it comes to what you may have or what you may not have. If it's anything in reference to a version of the coronavirus or flu or allergies or whatever it is, wants you to basically be aware of that. So that's why I have this posted here. You know, one, be able to tell if you have a fever or not. If you don't have a fever, if you have itchy eyes, if not, then you have a common cold. if you do have itchy eyes, then you may have allergies. Like I said, allergy season, pollen is, jumping off and all of that. So that's the thing that you have to, look at. If you have a fever and you're experiencing shortness of breath, then if you are, like I said, you are, then you may have coronavirus where you have fatigue, you're very tired, you're weak, you get exhausted very easily, you have a constant cough. If you don't have shortness of breath, then you may have the flu, which does include cough, fatigue, weakness, and exhaustion. So you see, if you work down on the way up, you could see that there are a lot of similarities between the coronavirus and the flu. And then some things from there, you have allergies and the common cold. So if you're basically sneezing, then that goes into the brackets for allergies or the common cold. But if you have a constant cough, if you are, fatigued, very weak, if you are exhausted, and then end up having shortness of breath, that's a respiratory issue. That means you may, potentially have coronavirus. Okay. So also think about that when it comes to these people that say that they have contracted coronavirus. Go through the list of what they say is the symptoms for coronavirus: coughing, very fatigued, very weak, very exhausted, shortness of breath. Okay. So if they have all of that, then, it's basically a version, or they could be diagnosed with coronavirus. But once again, that has to be confirmed by a doctor if they have a version of the coronavirus or the flu, influenza, something like that. Okay. So that comes from the CDC, and the National, I think that's the National Institute of Health there. So, with that being said, we'll put a close to this particular video. Hopefully, it will be informational to you. But also, like I said, once again, be aware of what's going on around you. Be aware of what the media is telling you. Be aware of who is being reported to have the coronavirus. And if they are reported to have that, think about what the symptoms are for coronavirus, and then kind of be able to think for yourself as far as, like, do they have it or not? That's all I'm going to say in reference to that. Now, in other words, you have to be able to think critically and logically when it comes to something like this. Whether you're buying what the media says, everything that the media says, whether you don't buy what the media says, whether you research other things, this quote unquote so called conspiracy theories, Q, or whatever it is, do your research as a adult. Okay. Don't buy into everything that someone or some organization says in reference to this. Don't buy into what I say when it comes to this. Do your research. I'm just giving you something for you to think about. That's all. I'm just giving you something to think about. But like I said, be wary of who has been reported to have the coronavirus. That's pretty much what I'm telling you in reference to that. And when I do that, I am also bringing this up before I roll out. I will just say this: these people that are on the screen have been reported to contract coronavirus. Okay, this is a list as of March 15th. Okay, so this is recorded. Whether it's going to be on here, whether it gets deleted, I don't care. The truth is out there for you to find and for you to decipher. So, with that being said, be safe, do research, And once again, be safe. And that's all I got. I'm out.